Mondstadt has a long and extensive history, and that especially shows in the origins of the Knights of Boreas and their link to the Four Winds. It's not surprising then that Varka, the Grand Master of the Knights of Boreas and the Knight of Boreas, has such strong ties to this history. In this video, I'm going to be exploring the history of both of these titles and explore how Varka upholds the values of Mondstadt in his own way. Fair warning that it's not entirely clear when certain events happened, but I tried my best to make it somewhat chronological. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoy Boreas' journey to Mondstadt. It all starts with the wolf Boreas. He and his pack are originally from Nod Cry, where they eventually ended up in Amsvartnir. Here, the wolf stumbled into the royal court of the Seelie, which was essentially a jail. Here, Koitar, the first angel, was confined along with other angels who were turned into Seelies by the heavenly principles. Koitar and Boreas seem to enjoy each other's company, and Koitar is actually the one who gave him the name Boreas. Their meeting benefited them both, as Boreas was blessed with more cognitive abilities, including speech. This blessing is what turned him into the god Andreas. On the other hand, Koitar's encounter with Boreas made her remember her former lover, Soitervoinen, and why she was confined to the royal court to begin with. During the time of the Archon War, Boreas traveled to Mondstadt with his pack, which was ruled by King Dicaberion at the time. The people lived in what's now known as Stormterror's lair, in the same tower that's still surrounded by winds even now. Boreas decided to declare war against Dicaberion, causing blizzards to come over Mondstadt. During this conflict, Dicaberion surrounded the city in a wall of wind to keep the people in and keep Boreas out. The reason why Boreas declared war is not entirely clear, but this conflict between them lasted for a long time, neither side seeming to be winning or losing. That is, until the people grew unhappy with their lives stuck within the tower and wished to leave. They experienced what Dicaberion saw as protection as a controlling prison and deemed him a tyrant, and people slowly started to show resistance against him. This eventually led to a rebellion. It was led by Gunhildr, a nameless bard, a red-haired warrior, and Amos. These figures, especially Gunhildr, were guided by a wind spirit. This wind spirit is who we now know as Barbados, before he obtained his human form. Although they defeated Dicaberion, Amos and the Nameless Bard unfortunately also lost their lives. Since this was the Archon War and Dicaberion died, it opened up the spot for the god of Mondstadt. Boreas could have taken the spot, but instead decided to return to Nod Cry. He did this because he believed he did not understand human love and could not be a good Archon, probably fearing that he would turn out just like Dicaberion, who also could not understand human love properly. Thus, Boreas returned to the court of the Seelie in Nod Cry and went into slumber. Instead, the wind spirit, who became more powerful from people's support, took over the body of the deceased bard and took the position of Animal Archon, Barbados. While Boreas is gone, Barbados reshapes Mondstadt, and a new city is built in the place where it still is right now. The people are free to go wherever they please, and Mondstadt thrives for a good while. The city is reigned by various aristocratic clans, mainly the Gunhildr and Lawrence clan, who swear to protect the city and uphold its values. However, the prosperity did not last long. As we know, Barbados is not a god who prefers to govern his people, instead leaving them to be free and only stepping in when his intervention is necessary. His absence, however, made it possible for certain aristocrats, particularly those of the Lawrence clan, to get greedy for more power and become corrupt. Even though knightly or gladiator duels in the Colosseum were probably already a tradition in Mondstadt, the Lawrence clan instead made enslaved people, such as the Muratans, fight for their own entertainment. Many people were against this, but there was nothing they could really do against the powerful aristocracy. After people prayed to Barbados to help them overthrow the corrupt aristocracy, the god returned to the city as Venti, so nobody was aware. Venti, of course, did not agree with the things the Lawrence clan was doing, and even mocked a member of the Lawrence clan. After doing so, he meets Vanessa, one of the enslaved Muratans. Vanessa is supposed to have a duel the following day against the dragon Ursa that had been threatening not only Mondstadt but the Muratans as well. If she were to win this duel, the Lawrence clan would free her people. Venti offered to free her people prior to the duel, but Vanessa said they could not beg for their freedom and that they had to fight for it. However, when the duel actually began, the Lawrence clan makes the entire tribe, including children, fight the dragon, rather than just Vanessa. People started to protest that it was unfair, and since the lord of the Lawrence clan was so sure they would lose, he added the control of the city to her rewards to make it seem more fair. During the fight, Venti returns as Barbados and blesses Vanessa, boosting her combat powers to help her drive away the dragon. Lord Lawrence could no longer go back on his offer at this point, and so Vanessa became the ruler of Mondstadt. Around this time, a wandering knight stumbles into the court of the Seelie, where he finds Boreas sleeping. Boreas wakes up and becomes friends with the man, who asks him to go to Mondstadt with him. Boreas agrees, but he leaves part of his spirit in Not Cry. Upon witnessing Mondstadt under Vanessa's leadership and Venti's guidance, he decides to give up his physical body, merging his godly powers with the ley lines. He knew that the blizzards he caused only harmed humans, which is not something he wanted. After this, all that was left of Boreas is parts of his spirit, half of which is in Mondstadt and the other half is in Not Cry. The part of his spirit that remains in Mondstadt can be found in Wolvendom, where we can fight him as a boss. But he also became the pack leader of the wolves in this area, the Knights of Boreas. After the corrupt Lawrence clan members were exiled, Mondstadt was reformed again, and Vanessa established the Knights of Favonius together with Venti, who in turn established the Four Winds. She thus became the first Grand Master of the Knights of Favonius. Venti recognized Boreas' sacrifice and asked him to be one of the Four Winds. Boreas also recognized everything Venti did for Mondstadt, and so he agreed. 2 titles were made in the Knights to honor Vanessa and Boreas, the Lionfang or Dandelion Knight and the Wolf Knight or Knight of Boreas. The Knights wanted the unnamed man who took Boreas back to Mondstadt to become the first Knight of Boreas, but he refused to join. Instead, a man called Ravenwood, who was also recognized by Boreas, became the first official knight with that title. The unnamed man, however, is still recognized as the first Knight of Boreas. The generations that came after Vanessa also tried to pass on these titles, but not all the potential title holders were also recognized by Boreas himself, which is why the title threatened to disappear on multiple occasions. The next person to gain both the recognition of Boreas and the official title was Rostam. He was a close friend of the Grand Master of that time, Arundel. He was the lover of Signora, and he also developed the Favonius blade work that the knights still use. You can even find it in the basic attacks of most, if not all, Mondstadt sword and claymore characters. Since Rostam experienced the Cataclysm, he expeditioned to protect Mondstadt from the abyssal monsters that emerged into Vat at this time. Unfortunately though, he lost his life in the battle against the monsters. This death deeply affected those around him, including his student Roland, who was supposed to become the next Knight of Boreas, and was even already recognized by Boreas himself. He had been taught everything about being a knight by Rostam and valued chivalry deeply. After Rostam's death, which was one of many that he witnessed, Roland became somewhat disillusioned, or rather obsessed in his knightly pursuits, going on a killing spree of the abyssal monsters. This killing spree stained his armor black with blood, making his nickname change from White Knight to the Blood-Stained Knight. This yet again left the position of Knight of Boreas open for 500 years, which is basically the same as the time between Ravenwood and Rostam. Grand Master Varka. This position is now of course occupied by the current Grand Master of the Knights, Varka. After challenging Boreas multiple times, he was recognized by him. Mondstadt praised him for his deeds, but that was not where Varka stopped, as he also took up the Hexencircle trial that was set up by Alice and Barbeloth. The Hexencircle became allies with Mondstadt after Venti set up the tripartite allegiance between himself, the witches, and the knights. And it's thus not surprising that Varka wants to pass their trial and prove himself to them. After passing this trial, and since Barbeloth wanted to reward him for it, he chose to gaze into a scryglass. Here, he witnessed an abyssal disaster in Not Cry. The scryglass could not show him everything, of course, but that did not stop Varka from taking any precautions necessary and journeying to Not Cry with a large part of the knights. After all, this disaster could be linked to the part of Boreas' spirit that remained in Not Cry. This is why Varka has been away from home for so long. When the traveler meets him in Not Cry, the wild hunt is already raging rampant. Since Varka took so many precautions, he and the knights that accompanied him to Not Cry are also able to deal with this threat. and Varka himself even joins us in the fight against the Raiger of Solnari. This was probably not what Varka was expecting when he gazed into the scryglass, but he fought nonetheless. We know the Abyss to be a chaotic entity that always seeks to get stronger, and this also happened when Rerir was defeated. Since it no longer had a powerful host to guide it, it became more dormant, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. And that is where Boreas' spirit comes into play. Since the spirit was split up into pieces, the Abyss was easily able to corrupt these pieces and use it to manifest into a new physical being. It's likely that the Abyss used Boreas' memories to make this manifestation, as it turned into Roland, the blood-stained knight. Roland's memories merged with Boreas' shattered spirit, which in turn tainted the memories of Boreas. It made Boreas forget what love means and thus refused to return to the ley lines, even though this is the choice that Boreas made for the people of Mondstadt. We discover during Varka's story quest that the reason that the Abyss is able to use Roland in this way is because he actually became a part of the Abyss. As I mentioned earlier, Roland went on a killing spree. It turns out that he also traveled to Conria to defeat abyssal monsters there, but instead discovered that the monsters here, especially Hilichurls, were actually former humans. It looks like he talked to Vedner Volnir in this time, who we know as one of the 5 sinners that tapped into abyssal power. Vedner Volnir's persuasion probably made Roland think that he could save these people by joining the Abyss, which was the ultimate act of chivalry for him. Varka was worried that letting this go on would cause Boreas' spirit to cause problems in Not Cry, and thus wanted to do something to stop it. In his story quest, he briefly returns to Mondstadt to ask Boreas for advice. Boreas offers up a part of his spirit that was not corrupted in order to merge it with the part that was corrupted and show it the truth. Since the spirit of a god is too powerful to be merged with that of a human and could kill the wielder, he instead put it in Varka's sword. Or, well, so we thought. When Varka is fighting the manifestation of Boreas and Roland, he lets it defeat him in order to enter the wolf's heart. Here, we discover that Varka actually risked everything and put the spirit into his own heart, and not into a sword. That immediately shows how self-sacrificial Varka can be, as he's willing to lay down his life to not only protect the people he cares about, but also people he might not even know at all. As much as Varka hates paperwork, he's definitely smarter than he lets on. In order to make sure he would not die, he used the letters people sent him from Mondstadt to ground him into that, an act that's pretty reminiscent of what happened to Traveler in Natlan and Inazuma. Roland argued that Varka's ways are not the way of a true knight, but I think this scene shows that Varka does things his own way. He protects, just like Roland, but is also able to rely on others, something Roland no longer did when he became the Bloodstained Knight. After making sure that Boreas returned to the ley lines, just as he had chosen to do in Mondstadt 1,000 years ago, Varka is finally able to return home. He's welcomed by all the knights, but also by those who are not officially part of the knights, but care about him nonetheless. It's clear that Varka is very important to the people of Mondstadt, which is, in my opinion, really beautiful to see. I also love the fact that Varka is older than the other characters, as it makes everything so much more impactful. He watched everyone around him grow up and witnessed the things they've gone through. Diluc is a big example of this, with the loss of his father. Varka saw Diluc change and regretted that he left the Knights, constantly asking him to come back. Diluc, of course, always says no, but it's the thought that counts. Varka will always welcome everyone with open arms, and isn't that exactly what Barbados does too? I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I was able to make the lore of Mondstadt a bit more clear with it. I personally felt pretty confused with all the names and different events that are all tied together, so it was fun to go through them all again and gain a deeper understanding. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed. Bye bye!